Hello guys, it's another one. We are at the Badagry Heritage Museum. Please come with me. I'm Itswell Onyebuchan, you?
Okay, my name is Olamide Hundeyin.
Okay, Olamide, we are in your place today now. So what is this place all about?
The place is all about the Transatlantic slave trade. But the building itself was built in the year 1863. So it was later converted to museum in the year 2002 by the former governor of Lagos State in the person of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. So it was one that converted the place to museum. So in the museum we have 9 different sections, and then they are talking about the transatlantic slave trade, the roles of the Europeans in West Africa, the roles of the slave at the West Indies, and then all what they planted. I'm going to explain in details here.
Okay, so shall we?
So the museum is all about the transatlantic triangular slave trade. Slave trade started in the year 1445 by the Portuguese. So initially it was a search of gold and ivory, probably to propagate Christianity. But when the Europeans arrived in West Africa, few Africans were taken down to Lisbon to serve as a proof to Sir Henry the Navigator that they are going to West Africa. So Henry the Navigator now came back to West Africa again in the year 1411, and he kidnapped a prince in Senegal. But in Senegal, it was a taboo for a prince to be kidnapped. So he was given 29 men in exchange of that prince. So that's when he realized they can make money from the business of slave trade. So they came back to West Africa again in the year 1447, and then they got to Badagry in the year 1473. Now they started the transatlantic slave trade fresh in Badagry. So they take slaves from West Africa down to West Indies. At the West Indies, the slaves were forced to work on the plantation, and the plants were like sugar cane, tobacco, cotton, rice, and bananas. All the things they planted we harvest and then taken back to Europe. And in Europe, the crops were turned to finishing goods. They turned sugarcane into sugar, tobacco into cigarettes, cotton into textile, bananas into whiskey. And they bring it to Africa again in exchange of more slaves. So the system is triangular. And because they were via the Atlantic Ocean, so they come across the Atlantic triangular slave trade. Okay. So here we have the symbol used to campaign against slave trade.
Okay.
So when the slave decide to take destiny into their hands, so they are fighting for their freedom. So when the slave says, "Am I not a man and a brother?" So that is he not a man like the master? Is he not a brother to the master? So why is the master trying to enslave him? So he's begging for freedom. So we can see they change the hand and leg of the slave. So the slave is campaigning against slavery. And also we have how the Europeans divide the West African coast into 4 major coasts. Each of the coasts was named after what they discovered. So the first one is called the Grain Coast. And the Grain Coast is Sierra Leone and Senegal, because a lot of grain products were discovered in Grain Coast. And the second one is the Ivory Coast, and Ivory Coast is Côte d'Ivoire. The third one is the Gold Coast, and Gold Coast is Ghana. And the last one is the Slave Coast. So Slave Coast is Wida in Benin Republic and Badagry in Nigeria. Badagry and Niger Delta. So they are the slave coasts as we have in Nigeria. Though they get slaves from all these coasts, but out of 100 slaves, the slave coast has to provide 70 out of 100. That's why they are called the slave coast. Here we have the African effort before the transatlantic slave trade. So this shows that Africa has been civilized before the European came down to West Africa. Talking about civilization, Egyptians are the one that first get civilized all over the world. And then we have the white slaves. So the white slave shows that it's not only the Africans that were taken as slaves. Slave trade is a general business. They also enslaved from other parts of the world. For example, we have the Arabs taking the whites as slaves. And also we have the Greek taking the whites as slaves. Let me just say this, that the word slaves happens to be a region in Slovakia. Those regions are called the Slavs. So they call them the Slavs. So the Slavs, they were enslaved, they were taken, and then they were Slavs. Who are these people? They said they were the Slavs. So they asked them to work on the plantation. That's where the word slaves came from. Here we have the Trans-Sahara slave trade, the process where they take the slave through the desert, then down to North Africa. During this trade, slaves have access to buy their freedom and then become whatever they want to become. So we have a good example of a slave during this, and the man is known and called as King Jaja of Opobo, who was sold as a slave and then bought freedom and rose and become a king. And then we have the trade route. So we have the trade route, how they take the slave down to the slave market in Badagry, and the market is called Vlekete Slave Market. From the market, they sold 300 slaves every market day. It was the largest and the oldest slave market in the whole of West Africa. Let's see the next place, please.